right, so what was happening at the end of yesterday?
They just realized that he probably has cancer in his foot.
Oh no, he broke his foot. Like he broke a bone or something in there.
Yeah.
Something more serious is wrong with him,
He was
right?
saying, like,
So with more
I don't
cancer-
think they said
he's
cancer.
like, I am so proud to be your father or something like that.
Yeah, so he was just like, I don't care if you can play again. I'm so proud to be your dad. He was crying.
And then you decided to stop reading.
And then I stopped reading because it was the end of the chapter.
Whoa.
Chapter 54. The next 2 days,
54 chapters of this book.
there's like 100.
Holy moly.
Bruh. What's it call it?
We will.
Will we know?
We will.
Miss Girl, what's happening? And what it?
The next 2 days were a blur. The injury wasn't the problem. He had a slight tear in the cartilage that could be fixed any time. Everyone called the injury a blessing because it led to the discovery of something that might have gone unnoticed until it was too late. There was something on his knee, on the bone. That's what they called it, something. They didn't call it a tumor, and no one said the word cancer. Still, somehow Harrison knew in his mind that that's what it was. Cancer. He knew by the look on his mom's face, the red around her eyes, and the way she held her chin at a ferocious angle that seemed to challenge the whole world. She didn't cry in front of him, even though it wasn't hard to tell she had been crying before. It made Harrison feel better that she didn't cry. It made him feel like things might be okay. They told him from the start that they were going to operate on him as soon as possible, and that made sense to Harrison. The only question he could ask the doctors was, can I still play football? The doctor, tall with pale skin and sunken cheeks, patted him on the shoulder and tried to smile. Let's hope so. No promises, but let's hope so. The day of the operation, Harrison lay in the hospital bed and reminded his parents of the doctor's words. He said he hopes so, Coach. I should be okay. I'll be back. So at this point, Harrison is so convinced that Coach only wants him because he can play football. Do you hear that in what I'm reading? Like, he's completely convinced that Coach only wants him because of football. So he's like, don't worry, don't be sad. He has hope that I'll be able to play again. And that's not why Coach is sad, right? So we as readers understand that. Harrison does not. Okay? The day of the operation, Harrison lay in the hospital bed and reminded his parents of the doctor's words. Oh, sorry, I already read that. Coach took his hand and knelt down beside the bed. Harrison, can you call me Dad? Not all the time, but sometimes. Can you do that? See, I think of you as my son. I know I should have said it a long time ago because that's the way I felt. And when we get out of here, we're going to make it legal. We're going to adopt you, Harrison. Is that all right with you? Harrison's throat felt tight. If I can't play, you don't have to keep me. Coach glanced at his wife before his glistening eyes locked on Harrison. No, you don't understand. Of course we'll keep you. We'll keep you no matter what. You belong to us, Harrison, and we belong to you. Please, son, don't say that. I hate that I let you think it. Harrison's embarrassment was drowned out by pure joy. I'll be okay. I promise, Coach. Dad. The nurse came in. She put a needle in Harrison's arm, and the fog of the past few days evaporated. He knew exactly where he was. His entire life flashed forwarded in his brain, and it made him want to cry. The needle stung, but after the plastic bag swinging above his bed dripped cool liquid into his veins for a few minutes, he began to feel lightheaded and peaceful. He let his head settle down into the deep, clean-smelling pillow. They wheeled him down a long hall and into another room. They put a mask on his face, and the room began to spin around, and Harrison thought of the big white fish, so much bigger and stronger than the rest. Unstoppable, just like him. Then everything went dark. His dreams were bad. Finally, he opened his eyes and saw his mom and Coach, his dad. They looked tired, but they smiled at him and touched his face, and Harrison felt hopeful. His leg itched. Harrison tried to sit up. His mom raised the bed for him, and she put a straw to his lips so he could sip cranberry juice. Itches, Harrison reached for his leg. Panic filled his mom's eyes. Harrison felt for the itch below his knee. His fingers groped at the blanket. Something was wrong. Something was very wrong. A nurse came in and fiddled with the plastic bag over his head. He felt like he was losing his breath, and he lay back and began to relax. He slept to the sound of his parents' voice. They were talking to the doctors. When he woke up the next time, he was hungry. They fed him and talked to him, and they seemed nervous for a reason he couldn't name. For 2 days, he was in and out of sleep, but he mostly slept. On the third day, he felt alert when he woke. His parents slept in 2 big chairs at the end of his bed. They held hands in their sleep across the gap. Coach needed a shave. Harrison smiled at the thought of teasing him. His leg itched and his knees ached in a way he hadn't imagined it could. When he reached for his leg, he bumped the thick bandage around his knee and winced. Tears of pain pooled in his eyes. He reached over the bandage and tried to scratch his itching leg. He knew it was there, under the sheets somewhere, and the past 2 days of not being able to find it and scratch that itch came all back to him. The moments stacked up like the cars of a train wreck, piling into each other, one after another in quick succession, wreaking havoc with each new crash. Panic stole his breath. Harrison heard a scream, and he knew it was his own. The sound ripped his parents from their sleep. "My leg!" The voice was ragged and torn. He barely recognized it. "Mom!" He had never called Jennifer Mama before. Mom, yes, but not Mama, and she rushed to his bed to hold him tight. He pressed his face into her chest to muffle his scream. "My leg is gone!" Did it... What?
No, is his leg just gone? Like they took a hacksaw to it and it's just...
No, God just despawned.
His leg is
Despawned
gone.
with that one.
Oh, so now he's looking like this now.
Wait, was that after the surgery?
After the surgery.
Oh.
How did he get
They
beat?
educated
How did his leg get beat up so hard that he gave him cancer?
Well, no. So the injury didn't give him cancer. The injury was what indicated that he did actually, in fact, have cancer.
I have an inquiry.
So now
Well,
he's
they took out the
now he's
leg.
gonna be waddling around like this from now on.
I mean, there's prosthetics and things. Like he's not just going to be hopping around on
Oh
the
yes,
leg.
now it's gonna be like
I have a thing.
He's got a lot of rehab he's going to. During the next few days at the hospital, Harrison didn't really want to talk. He would watch TV, movies mostly. He nearly forgot about the game until Coach came in on Saturday with the whistle around his neck. The fact that the team lost didn't matter. It also didn't matter to him who was there with him, even though his mom and dad usually were. Justin didn't matter. Doc, even for Becky, he could only muster a weak hand squeeze before the TV drew him back into its blinking world. The day after the game, he was watching the Turner Classic Movie Channel when he saw an old black and white picture about a submarine. When the Japanese hit the sub with depth charges, bombs shaped like barrels dropped into the sea. Water began to surge into the ships, filling it, crashing everyone inside until only lifeless hands and faces with wavy blurs of hair floated across the screen. Harrison snapped off the TV as the credits rolled. "That's me," he said to himself, but his mom looked up from her book. "Honey?" Harrison shook his head. He didn't have the energy to explain that the ocean of fear and misery that was his life had only been held back by the walls of something man-made, like the metal skin of a submarine. The protection that held everything back was football, a made-up game that people loved to play, watch, and talk about. It held back all the evil in Harrison's life, and Harrison had come to think that life on his new submarine was the natural state of things, but it wasn't. The natural state was for him to drown in a briny soup, to be crushed by it and forced to breathe it in until he was as useless as a floating body. "Honey," his mom wore a worried look. Harrison sank his head back into the pillow and rolled his head to the side away from her. His leg was gone from the knee down, and the hospital stays had just begun. They told him that over the next few months, he would spend a couple of days in the hospital every other week for chemotherapy. Harrison had bone cancer, and it might have spread through his body already and into other bones that might have to be removed. As bad as it was to be a cripple, Harrison knew it was 10 times worse to have cancer. Cancer was evil. Cancer ate away at you from the inside out until you were dead. Over the next several days, they brought doctors and counselors and shrinks and even Reverend Lindsay to his bedside. They tried to coax shame and urge him to look at the bright side. There was no bright side, only pain and misery. Then Major Bauer arrived. Okay, so explain to me the metaphor that Harrison used for his life.
It's like by
0 to hero back to 0, or maybe just like a half.
Right. So like everything was going great for him. He was doing well. And all of a sudden he got bombed by a Japanese carrier ship and
No, I like to feel it more that he's a big cruise ship and then a Japanese plane hit him.
right. So he feels like his life is over.